Welcome to Workforce Wins. We hope to deliver you one focused, evidence-informed strategy you can understand, adapt and begin applying immediately, all in less than 10 minutes. Designed specifically for Commonwealth Home Support providers and managers who may be time poor but are committed to building stronger, more sustainable teams. And brought to you by the Sector Support and Development Southern Services Reform Group.
Hi, my name is George Gouzounis. I work with Cultural Q, the training arm of the Multicultural Communities Council of South Australia. The topic today is supporting and retaining the culturally diverse workforce. Of course, the question is not whether your organization is diverse. Most CHISP providers already have a very diverse team, but it's how well you're working across that diversity. We'll cover four things. First, we'll look into an overview of our subject to see what's actually going on. Then we will look into a new framework, a new way to think about our diverse workforce. Then we'll look at the 5 things you can do in the next quarter and where to from here. So when thinking about managing a diverse workforce, cultural awareness has been the default response in this sector for years. We've all sat through the sessions, but here's the issue. Awareness on its own doesn't change much in the workplace. Yes, we are all aware that we are diverse. It doesn't take long to notice. But awareness doesn't change how the shift runs, how a team handles tension, or whether a worker of cold background stays past the first 6 months. And the numbers say that this isn't a side issue. More than half of Australians' aged care workforce comes from a culturally and linguistically diverse background, and around 1 in 4 people receiving home care are from cold background as well. So this is the workforce and this is our client base. Most providers already know that, but the harder question is how well we're actually working across that diversity. There are 2 patterns that I see often. The first one is the idea that we can solve cultural differences by matching clients with workers from the same background. Sometimes it works, but it is not a long-term workforce strategy. It doesn't scale, it's not practical, and it does put a lot of weight on a small group of workers. The second one is retention. It is no secret that many workers from diverse backgrounds they join an organization only to leave soon after. The reasons do not show up in exit interviews. They show up in smaller things, who gets heard in team meetings, whose feedback is actioned, whether someone's name is pronounced properly 6 months on. So instead of awareness training, here's what I would suggest instead. 2 lenses working together. The first one is cultural intelligence, or CQ. It is a personal capability, the ability to notice when something cultural is happening, staying curious rather than defensive, and adjust how you communicate. It sits alongside emotional intelligence, and it is a learnable skill. The second one is cultural competence, which happens at the organizational level. This is the systems work, how you recruit, how you supervise, how you handle complaints, how meetings run, what gets escalated. These are the things that tell a cold worker that they belong in your organization. So why do you need both? Because cultural intelligence without cultural competence means good people working inside unsupportive systems. They will wear out. On the other hand, organizational competence without cultural intelligence at a personal level, it means that good policies will be run by people who cannot apply them in a tense moment with a client or work or colleague. So put them together and you can serve any client with any worker, and your team becomes a place that diverse staff actually want to stay. So let's look at 5 practical things you can do this quarter. First one is start with leadership, not the front line. Most providers get this one in the wrong order. Their instinct is, our care workers interact with diverse clients every day, so let's train them. It is logical, but it misses the point. A care worker can sit through, a great cultural intelligence session and then walk back into a workplace where the manager still dismisses cultural nuances or, shuts down concerns from the staff, because that's how we do things over here. All the training in the world won't survive this. So train your managers first. They set what's acceptable in your organization. And once they're capable of holding that space, frontline training comes next. 2, training will take place over a day or 2, but the most important part, however, is what comes right after: embedding cultural intelligence and competence into the everyday operation. And onboarding is the obvious place to start. A new starter's first few weeks will set the expectations for what your work culture really is. If their induction includes a real cultural component, not say 5 minutes of "we value diversity," they understand that this is how you work, not just what you say. Then carry it into supervision. When a manager debriefs, say, an incident, one of the questions should be, was there a cultural element here? Did we handle it well? What would we do differently? That's where capability builds. 3, pick one process and look at it through a cultural lens. Recruitment is a useful first one because the patterns are usually visible. Look at your job ads, look at your interview panels. For example, are your panels themselves diverse, or is every panel member from the same cultural background? Look at how you weigh experience. In many of the cultures our workforce are coming from, caring for older relatives is just part of family life. It doesn't get called a job, so it doesn't end up on a resume. So many of the applicants will have years of real care experience that you won't see unless you ask. In any case, you do not need to audit everything at once. Pick one process, look at it honestly, and change one thing. 4, exit interviews happen too late. By the time someone is leaving, they've already disengaged months earlier, and they won't give you a full account on the way out. Stay interviews, flip this, they work much better. Sit down with your diverse staff individually, not as a group, and ask 3 things: what's working for you here, what's not working for you, and what would make you stay for another year. Listen, don't defend, don't explain, just take notes. Then do something about what you hear. The conversation itself sends a signal, of course, but acting on what you hear will send an even stronger one. And 5, I'll keep this short, every time you run training, attach it to something specific that changes the following week. A new question in a supervision template, a different way of handling complaints. You and your staff will know the training worked when something in the workplace has actually changed. So where to from here? A few places to take this further. Aging Australia has a cultural diversity in aged care campaign. They developed it together with a provider in Victoria with downloadable fact sheets, roadmap, posters and more. Then SSI has a free guide specifically on recruiting and retaining a cold aged care workforce. And of course, Cultural Q at the Multicultural Communities Council. And on the same note, if any of this resonates and you want to build it into your team, at Cultural Q we deliver training that meets you where you are, whether you're a small CHSP provider or a larger organization. The contact details are on the screen. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for joining us, and tune in for the rest of the series, which you can find on the SSRG YouTube channel or website, or alternatively contact us at info@ssrg.org.au.